call to order the special session of the Knox County Commission for Monday, June 5th, 2023. The purpose of this meeting The purpose of this meeting is to adopt an operating capital budget and tax rate for fiscal year 24, as well as approve the organizational chart for the executive branch. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Lundy.
Here.
Commissioner Durrett.
Here.
Commissioner Oster. Commissioner Ward.
Here.
Commissioner Schoonmaker.
Here.
Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Beeler.
Here.
Commissioner Daly. Commissioner Jay.
Here.
Commissioner Frazier. All members are present.
We do have a quorum, and since we are all here for this special session, I will ask Vice Chair Hill to lead us in the pledge. Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you please read the first item?
It's Resolution R-23-6-101-SS, establishing a general county budget, making appropriations from the several funds for departments, institutions, offices, and agencies of Knox County, Tennessee, for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023, and ending June 30th, 2024.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Jay with a second by Commissioner Schoonmaker. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Madam Clerk, next item, please. What are we hanging on? Do we need a roll call? Do we need a roll call? We'll do a roll call, just to be safe.
Commissioner Lundy. Commissioner Durrett.
Aye.
Commissioner Oster.
Aye.
Commissioner Ward.
Aye.
Commissioner Schoonmaker. Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Beeler. Commissioner Daly. Commissioner Jay.
Aye.
Commissioner Frazier. 11.
That motion is approved. Madam Clerk, next item.
The next item is Resolution R-23-6-102-SS. It's establishing the Knox County tax rates for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023, and ending June 30th, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Jay with a second by Commissioner Beeler. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Durrett.
Aye.
Commissioner Oster. Commissioner Ward. Commissioner Schoonmaker. Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Beeler. Commissioner Daly. Commissioner Jay.
Aye.
Commissioner Frazier. Commissioner Lundy.
Aye. 11-0. That motion carries. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
It's R-23-6-103-SS, adopting the 5-year capital improvement plan for the fiscal years 2024 through 2028, and appropriating funds for the first year of the plan in accordance with said plan.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Jay with a second by Commissioner Schoonmaker. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Oster. Commissioner Ward. Commissioner Schoonmaker. Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Beeler. Commissioner Daly. Commissioner Jay.
Aye.
Commissioner Frazier. Commissioner Lundy.
Aye.
Commissioner Durrett.
Aye. 11-0, that motion carries. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
It's Resolution R-23-6-104-SS, appropriating the amount of $7,437,750 to nonprofit organizations of Knox County, Tennessee for the year beginning July 1st, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Jay with a second by Commissioner Frazier. Any discussion? Commissioner Lee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question for Mr. Law Director. My question is, there are some of our nonprofits that maybe are using some of their funds for things that maybe that my constituents don't believe in to indoctrinate our children. I would like to know legally as a commission what we can do on that respect.
Okay. As private citizens, we have the absolute right to patronize or not patronize businesses or organizations that agree with our viewpoints or don't agree with our viewpoints. And that's part of our rights under the First Amendment. But the government is in a different situation. As the government, under the First Amendment and the corresponding amendment in the Tennessee Constitution, the government cannot engage in viewpoint discrimination. So we are not free to take the monies that we have decided to set aside to fund various non-governmental organizations and deny them based on viewpoints with which the government may disagree. Now, I've just been presented with this, so I haven't had the opportunity to review this thoroughly, but just in sitting here during the public meeting, I came across a case that's fairly analogous, Board of Regents of University of Wisconsin System versus Stallworth. It's a 2000 case from the U.S. Supreme Court. And in that case, the University of Wisconsin had student fees that they were allocating to various student organizations. And they were allowing students to determine which organizations could get funds and which couldn't based on viewpoints, basically. And the Supreme Court said you can't do that. There's also a similar situation with public forums. And I was told by Director Book, we had this arise a few years ago. If you allow public facilities to be used for private entities to have meetings, you can't point at one and say, well, we don't like you, so you can't use our facility. Viewpoint neutrality is what's required by the First Amendment. So if you were to strike the funding of a particular organization with which we have contracted to provide services, and I think I was talking to Chris about this during the break, and I think Chris will tell you all these organizations we have contracted with using the RFP process. Is that correct?
At one point, we did use the RFP process. Now, what we do is we enter into contracts with these entities to provide for services that we don't want to do like ourselves from a governmental standpoint. So what you will see and what we track with each organization is, and this is done through Jenny Holden, is we contract with them for a specific service or program. So our money is designated for a certain purpose and can't be used more broadly.
Right. So if we were to choose to defund an organization that was, and the decision was based on our disagreement with some of the speech that the organization, one part of the organization may be doing over here, which isn't affecting what we contracted the organization to do, then we would be engaging in viewpoint discrimination, essentially. That is prohibited by the First Amendment. It would very likely draw us a lawsuit from any of various First Amendment organizations, from the ACLU to any number of others that I could think of. And were we to lose that lawsuit, and I think there'd be a substantial possibility of that, not only would we be required to continue funding the organization, if we were to lose a lawsuit like that under civil rights law, we would have to pay the attorney's fees for the entity that sued us. and that could run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't say these things lightly. You guys know I've been around here a long time. I've been involved in adult business regulation for a large part of my earlier career, and I lost a fair number of cases based on that because the courts lean way, way over in favor of freedom of speech and way, way over against governments that attempt to regulate speech. So I understand your concerns, but I think that doing what you're thinking about, or what I think the import of your question would present substantial legal risks for the county.
Thank you. I guess my question would be, we are the voice for our constituents. And if our constituents don't like what a particular nonprofit is doing with their monies, what would be our best course of action?
Well, again, the government is required to engage in viewpoint neutral contracting. You cannot discriminate it based on the viewpoint of an entity, okay? If they're engaged in speech activities that are legal, that is not obscene by the legal definition of that term, then I think you've got a problem. I don't know how you do it, frankly. We've seen, and you talk about your constituents, we've seen just in the last few weeks what constituents can do on their own to companies that engage in activities that constituents don't care for. But as a governmental entity, we are under strictures that private entities are not. And I know that's frustrating sometimes. I've been frustrated by it myself from time to time. And yet, I have seen the result of letting that frustration get to be the better part of your judgment and engage in actions that, while they may feel good at the moment, run afoul of the First Amendment. At the end of the day, those kinds of actions almost always turn out badly. And then the constituents are faced with not only funding the organizations, but funding the lawyers that kept the funding flowing to those organizations. And that tends to make people even more upset. I'm happy to research this further and maybe get you a less spontaneous view on this matter. But as a general rule, if you're looking to engage in any kind of activity as a governmental entity that impacts freedom of speech, you have many, many, many very difficult hoops to jump through. And generally speaking, it's not a good road to go down.
I just have one final question.
Sure.
At some point, will we be able to address each and every contract that we have with each agency?
I believe that any contract over the, what is it, 100,000 now, Chris?
I'm going to let Jenny come because she brings these contracts to the commission. Some have to come, some do not, based off dollar amount. So I'm going to let her speak to that.
Thank you, Commissioner. We are on year 2 of our 3-year contract cycle with the defined service contracts. So these are automatically, they are all written so that they can be continued on an annual basis for a 3-year cycle.
And the third, when would be the 3 years that we would be up?
So this is year 2, so FY25 would be year 3, and then we would start that whole process over.
Okay. So will each one of these nonprofits be up to address at that time?
I'm sorry, would you repeat?
Each list of nonprofit, will they be up to address at that time?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Daly?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris, there's nowhere it says that we have to fund the Arts and Cultural Alliance, is it?
No, ultimately, I think to her point, we did a 3-year cycle. We fund them through motel tax. What the Arts and Cultural Alliance do, as I'm sure you're aware, they fund a number of organizations from IMS, I think, in your district, to a number of other organizations. And so, but we choose to use tourism-related dollars for those organizations because they are tourism-related.
Yeah. Along the lines with Commissioner Lee, there's some things happening that I don't like either. And it's not saying that we will strike. I don't think that we could not strike out one or two of these, because we would lose a lawsuit. But if it got worse, I wouldn't be upset to vote no, to not even fund them at all, because if you don't fund them at all, everybody's equal. Correct?
I think what you're saying is correct. If you don't fund any of them, then you don't have an issue there. I would say this, we're very strategic in what we do with these defined service contracts, because you will see that we are funding a certain program or a certain, I guess program's the best word, that they're doing. And that's the same thing with Arts and Cultural Alliance. They don't give the organizational just total discretion on their money. They have to tell them what it's for. So if you ever have a concern about an organization, we could look and tell you what that funding is going to.
Yeah. I would like to see that, like Commissioner Lee has stated, when those contracts come up.
Sure.
Thanks.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is to approve by Commissioner Jay with a second by Commissioner Frazier. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ward? Commissioner Schoonmaker? Commissioner Hill? Commissioner Lee? Aye. Commissioner Beeler?
Aye.
Commissioner Daly? Commissioner Jay?
Aye.
Commissioner Frazier? Commissioner Lundy? Commissioner Durrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Oster?
11-0, that resolution passes. Madam Clerk, next item.
Resolution R-23-6-1005-SS is approving the organizational chart of the executive branch of Knox County government.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Jay with a second by Commissioner Schoonmaker. Any discussion? Seeing none. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Schoonmaker? Commissioner Hill? Commissioner Lee? Commissioner Beeler? Commissioner Daly? Commissioner Jay?
Aye.
Commissioner Frazier? Commissioner Lundy? Commissioner Durrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Oster? Commissioner Ward?
Aye.
11-0, that resolution passes. Is there any further business to come before the special session of the Knox County Commission? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. We are adjourned.